The ambassador's car was smoking on the shoulder of I-95, and nobody could understand what the panicked diplomat was saying. State police were helpless. The FBI translator was 40 minutes away. Then, a beat-up tow truck pulled over, and the driver stepped out speaking perfect diplomatic French. That's when they realized they had no idea who this man really was. Welcome to True Human Tales. Before we continue this incredible story of hidden talents, buried secrets, and unexpected heroism, tell me in the comments, from which city in the world are you watching this video today? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. We're building a community that honors the extraordinary people hiding in plain sight. Eduardo Martinez had been driving tow trucks in the Washington, D.C. metro area for 3 years. To his coworkers at Reliable Towing, Eddie was quiet, competent, and completely unremarkable. He showed up on time, handled calls without drama, and went home without joining after-work conversations. When customers tried making small talk, Eddie nodded politely and continued working in silence. When dispatch called, his responses were limited to "copy that" and arrival times. His coworkers had theories about his quietness. Some thought he was shy, others figured he didn't speak much English despite his Hispanic surname. A few suspected social anxiety. The truth was both simpler and more complicated. Eddie Martinez was tired of talking. After spending 15 years in a job where words were weapons, where the wrong phrase could blow operations and the right conversation could prevent international incidents, he found peace in mechanical problems. Cars broke down for predictable reasons. Nobody's life depended on perfect pronunciation. At Reliable Towing, Eddie could be invisible. After a career in shadows, invisibility felt like freedom. His apartment was small, but his own. No handlers checking in randomly, no encrypted phones, no false identities to maintain. Just Eddie Martinez, tow truck driver, living quietly. The work was surprisingly satisfying. Eddie had developed a reputation for diagnosing problems quickly and handling difficult situations with unusual calm. Send Martinez became shorthand for send someone who won't make it worse. What his co-workers didn't realize was that Eddie's skills came from extensive training in crisis management and tactical assessment. The same mental processes he'd used to navigate diplomatic negotiations now helped him figure out car problems. But on this Tuesday evening in October, all of Eddie's carefully constructed anonymity was about to be destroyed. Eddie was finishing a routine call when his radio crackled urgently. Unit 7, Priority 1 call, I-95 southbound, mile marker 177. Multiple vehicle incident, state police requesting you specifically. Eddie felt familiar coldness in his stomach. Being requested specifically usually meant trouble. The drive took him past areas that triggered memories, past Langley, around restaurants where he'd debriefed assets. As he approached the scene, flashing lights were visible long before he arrived. State police cruisers, fire trucks, ambulance, and black SUVs screaming federal law enforcement. The kind of response that meant this wasn't just a fender bender, but it was the diplomatic license plates on the crumpled limousine that made Eddie's blood pressure spike. A Virginia State Police sergeant intercepted him. "You Martinez from Reliable Towing?" "That's me." "Thank God. We've got a situation. That limo belongs to the French ambassador. Driver lost control, hit the median, nobody seriously injured. Problem is, the ambassador is in full panic mode, speaking rapid French, and nobody understands what he's saying." The sergeant gestured toward an elderly man in an expensive suit, gesticulating frantically at an overwhelmed trooper. "FBI's sending someone, but 40-minute wait. I know this is outside your job, but dispatch said you might help with communication issues." Eddie realized he was at a crossroads. He could claim no French knowledge and maintain anonymity, or reveal skills that would lead to unwanted questions. But watching the ambassador's frantic gestures, Eddie's instincts kicked in. Ambassadors didn't panic over routine accidents. "Let me see what I can do." Eddie approached with measured steps, speaking in perfect diplomatic French. "Mr. Ambassador, I am Eduardo Martinez. I can help if you permit." Relief flooded the ambassador's features. "Thank God, finally someone who understands." "Listen, this is very important." A rapid 5-minute conversation in French followed. Eddie listened carefully, his expression growing serious as the ambassador explained his situation. The state police watched amazed as their quiet tow truck driver conducted sophisticated diplomatic consultation. Eddie's posture had changed, straighter, more authoritative. Finally, Eddie turned back. "Sergeant, bigger problem than an accident. The ambassador is carrying classified diplomatic documents that were supposed to reach the State Department tonight. They're locked in the trunk, and he's concerned about security if the car goes to regular impound." "What kind of documents?" "He won't specify, but classified and time-sensitive. He needs them transferred to another diplomatic vehicle first. I need to call this up the chain. Keep him calm while I figure out protocol." But as Eddie resumed French conversation, other first responders stared with new interest. The quiet tow truck driver was conducting crisis management like he'd done it his entire life. Which he had. Part 3. Multiple languages. While Eddie kept the French ambassador calm, the situation complicated further. A German consul at Sedan had been sideswiped in the original accident. The cultural attaché, Dr. Muller, was concussed and alternating between English and rapid German while paramedics tried understanding her medical history. "Martinez," the sergeant called. "Do you speak German?" Eddie felt his cover crumbling. He could deny German knowledge, but Dr. Muller needed proper medical care. He approached the ambulance where she argued with frustrated paramedics. "Dr. Muller, I'm Eduardo Martinez. Can you tell me where you have pain?" he asked in fluent German. Relief flooded her features. "Thank God." "Listen, I take heart medication, but I cannot remember the name. It is very important for treatment." Eddie spent minutes gathering medical information in German, then translating for paramedics. Heart medication, allergies, previous surgeries, crucial details for emergency treatment. But linguistic complications continued. A sedan with Chinese trade officials had witnessed the accident. Both elderly officials spoke limited English and were becoming agitated trying to explain what they'd seen in rapid Mandarin. "Please tell me you don't speak Chinese too," the sergeant said resignedly. "Which dialect?" Eddie asked. The sergeant stared. "There's more than one." Eddie approached the officials and listened briefly. Standard Mandarin, Beijing accent, formal register. "Gentlemen, I am Eduardo Martinez. I can translate for you if you need help," he said in perfect Mandarin. Immediate profound relief followed. Their detailed testimony revealed crucial information. The ambassador's limousine hadn't simply lost control due to weather. A black SUV with tinted windows had been aggressively following the diplomatic convoy and forced the ambassador's driver to swerve. The SUV had fled immediately. This suggested something far more serious than weather-related accident, but complications continued. Middle Eastern diplomats had stopped to offer assistance, speaking Arabic. Eddie found himself facilitating communication between French, German, Chinese, and Arabic-speaking officials at what was supposed to be routine traffic accident. "Peace be upon you, I'm Eduardo Martinez. Can I help you with translation?" he said in fluent Arabic. The Arabic-speaking diplomats responded gratefully, but revealed another concern. They represented a country with tense French relations and worried their presence might be misinterpreted. Eddie conducted delicate diplomatic reassurance in Arabic while coordinating medical care in German, witness testimony in Chinese, and security concerns in French. State police and federal agents watched amazed as their quiet tow truck driver managed multinational crisis with seasoned diplomatic skill. When FBI Special Agent Sarah Chen arrived 45 minutes later, she found what looked like impromptu United Nations meeting conducted by a man in coveralls. Eddie was simultaneously coordinating with French diplomats, providing German medical translation, gathering Chinese witness testimony, and managing Arabic cultural sensitivities. Agent Chen had expected routine diplomatic accident. Instead, she found expertly managed situation requiring advanced linguistic skills beyond any civilian tow truck driver's reasonable capabilities. She approached the state sergeant. "I'm Agent Chen, FBI Diplomatic Security. Brief me." "Thank God you're here. Multiple diplomatic vehicles, potential evidence this wasn't accidental, and..." He gestured toward Eddie speaking fluent Arabic. "That tow truck driver who speaks every known language." Agent Chen studied Eddie carefully. His posture, gestures, voice modulation when switching languages, everything suggested professional cross-cultural communication training. "How long has he been managing coordination?" "About an hour. Without him, complete disaster. These diplomats were increasingly agitated. German medical situation was dangerous. Witness testimony was incomprehensible. Martinez held everything together. Agent Chen made a decision that would change Eddie's life forever. She approached during his break. "Mr. Martinez, I'm Special Agent Chen, FBI. I understand you've provided translation services." Eddie looked up neutrally. "Just trying to help." "Impressive language skills. French, German, Chinese, Arabic. Unusual for a tow truck driver." "Always been good with languages," Agent Chen smiled. "Mr. Martinez, I've worked diplomatic security 8 years. I've met many people good with languages. Tonight wasn't just good. It was professional level. Your accent control, cultural awareness, diplomatic protocol. Where did you learn this?" Eddie was quiet, realizing his cover was blown. "Langley. CIA, 15 years, linguistic intelligence, cultural liaison, deep cover operations primarily Europe and Middle East. And now you drive tow trucks because I got tired of life where everything was secret, everyone potentially dangerous, nothing was what it appeared." Eddie gestured at the scene. "First time in 3 years I've used those skills. I was hoping it would never happen." "It did happen. And you probably prevented international incident tonight. If these diplomats couldn't communicate effectively, if medical situation was mishandled, if witness testimony was lost." "I just did what needed doing." Agent Chen studied him. "What you did, managing 5 diplomatic conversations simultaneously, maintaining cultural sensitivity under pressure, preventing serious international misunderstanding. That's exactly what we need in diplomatic security." "I'm happy driving tow trucks." "Are you? Really?" Eddie looked around. Despite chaos and blown cover, he had to admit something energizing about using abilities again. The intellectual challenge, cultural puzzle solving, satisfaction of preventing crisis through effective communication, aspects he'd missed. Before he could answer, a State Department limousine arrived. Real complications were beginning. Deputy Assistant Secretary Patricia Williams emerged with crisis management bearing. She surveyed the scene, multiple diplomatic vehicles, various nationalities, obvious complexity. Her attention was immediately drawn to Eddie, concluding Arabic conversation while coordinating French document security. Williams approached Agent Chen. "I was told we had multilingual civilian managing diplomatic communications." "Where?" Agent Chen pointed toward Eddie. "Eduardo Martinez, tow truck driver, former CIA linguistic intelligence." Williams studied Eddie, then approached directly. "Mr. Martinez, I'm Ambassador Williams, State Department. You've been coordinating communications tonight." Eddie straightened, falling back into unused protocols. "Yes, ma'am. Multiple diplomatic parties, language barriers creating complications." "Agent Chen says your former agency, linguistic intelligence?" 15 years, yes, ma'am." Williams grew thoughtful. "What you accomplished tonight is exactly the crisis management we need in diplomatic security. You prevented serious international incident, maintained protocol with sensitive parties, ensured crucial testimony wasn't lost." She continued, "I'll be direct. State Department's Diplomatic Security Service is chronically short-staffed in linguistic specialists, particularly your European, Asian, Middle Eastern combination. Your background check exists from CIA service, meaning immediate consultation clearance possible." Eddie was quiet. "Ma'am, I left that life for reasons that still apply." "I understand. But this wouldn't be deep cover or foreign assignments. Domestic diplomatic security, crisis management, VIP protection during high-level visits. Washington-based regular hours using linguistic skills to prevent exactly tonight's situation." The French ambassador stepped forward. "Monsieur Martinez, what you did tonight, managing our concerns while maintaining dignity with all parties, this is work of someone understanding not just languages, but cultures, diplomacy. Such skills should not be wasted." German Dr. Muller approached. "Without your help, my medical treatment would have been delayed, possibly incorrect. You literally may have saved my life." Eddie looked around at diplomatic officials, federal agents, state police who'd witnessed his crisis management. 3 years of invisibility, now surrounded by people wanting to remember him. The Chinese trade official made the comment that changed Eddie's perspective. "Mr. Martinez, Tonight you were bridge between worlds that often cannot speak to each other. This is gift, but also responsibility. Gifts unused help no one. Eddie realized his escape attempt had actually been escaping responsibility for his abilities. Linguistic skills taking years to develop, cultural knowledge purchased with danger, crisis management experience earned through high-stakes situations, all wasted on honest but limited work. Ambassador Williams, what exactly would this consultation work involve? 6 months later, Eduardo Martinez was no longer invisible. He maintained his reliable towing job, partly because he'd grown fond of straightforward mechanical problems, partly because State Department valued having a specialist who could blend into civilian environments. But 3 days weekly, Eddie worked as diplomatic security service consultant, providing translation, cultural guidance, and crisis management during high-level visits and international incidents. His small apartment was no longer sparse. Walls displayed certificates from multiple agencies recognizing diplomatic emergency service. Photos from the French ambassador's formal reception sat beside FBI commendation letters. Chinese officials had sent beautiful calligraphy with gratitude notes. Dr. Muller invited him to German cultural events, introducing him as the man who saved my life with perfect translation. Most significantly, Eddie had rediscovered purpose in his abilities. Instead of seeing linguistic skills as complicated past reminders, he now viewed them as tools preventing international misunderstandings that could escalate into serious incidents. His reliable towing coworkers needed time adjusting to revelation that their quiet colleague was actually multilingual former intelligence officer, now consulting for State Department. Eventually, they settled into dynamics where Eddie was simply the guy who speaks all languages. The story of the tow truck driver preventing international incident became Washington diplomatic community legend. Foreign officials would sometimes request the translator who understands tow trucks for situations requiring both linguistic skills and practical problem solving. Eddie learned that running from talents hadn't brought peace, it brought emptiness, but finding right ways to use talents, preventing conflict rather than managing it, had given him unexpected satisfaction in meaningful work. On quiet nights back to towing broken cars and helping stranded motorists, Eddie would reflect on how dramatically his life changed because of one diplomatic accident and deciding to help when he could have stayed silent. He'd spent 3 years trying to be invisible, only discovering the most meaningful life was one where unique abilities were visible, acknowledged, and used, serving something larger than himself. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give the world is not hiding who you really are, but finding the right way to be exactly who you're meant to be. So I ask you, do you have talents or skills you've been hiding? Abilities that could help others if you found courage to use them? Share your story in the comments. Tell us about hidden talents in your community. Because at True Human Tales, we believe extraordinary abilities exist in ordinary places, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, share, and help us celebrate people whose hidden talents make the world better. Until next time, you never know when the quiet person beside you might speak 7 languages and change everything.